everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Food History Happy Hour. My name is Sarah Wasberg Johnson, also known as the Food Historian. And today we're going to talk a lot about hot dogs, but we're also going to continue some of our conversations from last week, including about ice cream sodas, which is what I'm going to make tonight, and also a little bit about savory cocktails, hopefully, if we have time, and soda in general. So if you are watching, you can say hi in the comments, and as always, if you have any food history questions, regardless of whether or not they're related to tonight's topic, you can go ahead and drop them in the comments. And it's already really hot up here because I turned off the air conditioning. So we'll see how long I last without the air conditioning on. I do have this appropriately giant-sized block of ice that I froze last night to make tonight's cocktail, which is not really a cocktail, although it is from a guide that includes lots of different cocktails and cups. And it's called, if I can remember, thought this is a very appropriate title for all the horrible hot humid weather we've been having. It's called Cooling Cups and Dainty Drinks, a collection of recipes for cups and other compounded drinks, and of general information of beverages of all kinds. Sorry, that print is really tiny. By William Tarrington, published in 1869, again in London. I guess everybody in London just liked American drinks. There's a whole section on mint juleps and other sorts of drinks. So, tonight, I thought we would make something that is called the ice cream soda water. So we discussed a little bit the history of ice cream sodas last week and talked about how they date back to really the 1860s with the invention of the soda fountain. But it's not really how we consider ice cream today. It's not, you know, frozen custard. It was literally ice, some cream, which I have here in my little pitcher, and soda water. So that's what we're going to try to do tonight. I thought I would attempt to try live on camera to shave some ice. So nowadays when people think of shaved ice, they usually think of like snow cones and stuff, which is more like finely chopped ice, but real shaved ice is cut from a block of ice. And the reason why they do that in the 18th and 19th century is because that's how ice arrives, is pre-frozen in a giant block, because in order to have ice prior to electric refrigeration, you had to harvest it in these giant blocks in the wintertime and insulate them until summertime, usually in ice houses. Now, if you were wealthy, you maybe had your own pond or lake, and you could afford to cut your own ice and store your own ice. Or if you lived in a city, you might purchase ice commercially. That started in the United States in really the 1820s and 30s. But it's really not until the mid-century that commercially available harvested ice is available to people living in cities and towns. So I froze myself a block of ice last night. It keeps sticking. I was probably supposed to use distilled water or similar, so that it was nice and clear. It's obviously not nice and clear, but I just used tap water. I did give it a quick rinse, warm rinse to get it out of the container there. I just used a plastic container, nothing fancy. And we're going to attempt with my newly sharpened knife to shave some ice. I'm going to try and get a cup, right? It just says the original recipe calls for shaved ice syrup. We're going to use raspberry because not only that's what I have, but also because it was super popular in the 19th century. Heavy cream, as I said, and then soda water. So not a super clear recipe from the 1860s, but we're going to do our best. So let's see how this turns out. really not well. I don't know how this is gonna go, you guys. I'm freaking out, sweetie pie, already. We'll see if I can get a cup. Oh, it is starting to look a little bit like snow. So I wanted to use something that was almost like a if anybody's ever seen shingles being made, I wanted like something like a stropping knife, but obviously I'm just using a regular kitchen knife. And we'll see if how much I can shave before it all melts. The things I do for Food History Happy Hour. Oh, you guys can't really see. I am starting. I'll move it back a little bit maybe. I am starting to make a little pile. There you go. Oh, come on. Okay, this is really hard work, you guys. I can understand why you might want to pay someone to do this for you. Okay, there we have the start of some shaved ice. Feel free to say hi in the comments if you're watching. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm shaving ice to make an ice cream soda water from 1869 here on Food History Happy Hour. Okay, there's the next batch. Definitely need muscle to do it, that's for sure. Okay, is that a cup yet? No, I think it might be melting faster than I can make it, you guys. I don't think I needed to freeze quite this much ice, but that's okay. All right. Is that a cup? No. Am I maybe going to be done anyway? Possibly. We'll do one more session. Alright. Whew! Getting hot. I think that's just going to be enough. Oh, yes. Hi, Liz. Hi, Marty. Hi, Ashley. Yes, manually grated shaved ice is simpler, but more difficult, yes, than I thought it would be. Definitely there are commercial machines available out there, but, you know, I didn't want to spend money for one cocktail. So here we are. Ashley used to freeze ice in Cool Whip containers. I just used like a Glad container. Alright. This is like really pitiful ice, you guys. I think it's too hot in here and it's melting, so I'm going to try a little bit more and then we'll make the cocktail. Okay. That seems like a goodly amount. Alright. That's kind of enough, right? Alright, go away, ice. That was intense. I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of the ice now, but there we go. Going back in its container. I think I'm just going to leave this here. Alright. So we have our approximately 1 cup of hand-shaved ice. And it just says add equal parts of cream and syrup, which I think is just going to melt the ice. So I'm just going to do 1 ounce, I think, each of raspberry syrup and cream. We'll see. I have my little measuring thing here. Oh gosh, this raspberry syrup smells so good. Oh, it hasn't melted too much. An ounce of cream. And then, so that's the ice and the cream and the syrup. And then I'm going to add my soda water. Not too much, I guess, because I think I just melted all of the ice, you guys. So we'll see what it tastes like. Oh, it is very good, but yeah, the ice is pretty much all just melted. It's just cold right now. Yep. Bye-bye ice. All that work. For nothing. We probably could have just used ice cubes. But of course, in the period, they didn't have ice cubes. They just had giant blocks of ice. So you could have chipped some off. But maybe if I had been more patient and it wasn't quite so warm in here, I could have shaved more ice off. But it tastes fantastic. That was about the right ratio of shaved ice to syrup and cream. Hi, Katie. If you're just joining us, this is the ice cream soda water from 1869. It's heavy cream, raspberry syrup, equal parts. I used an ounce. Shaved ice, hand shaved ice, which I did actually hand shave from a block. I tried to go for a cup. I don't think I quite got there, but obviously the more the better. And then some soda water. So that is my beverage for this evening, which is pretty tasty and would go admirably with a hot dog, which I thought we would talk about today, because apparently this week it was National Hot Dog Day. Who knew? I didn't. So I had a hot dog for supper. 2 hot dogs, actually, which was delicious. And hot dogs have kind of an interesting history. I mentioned on Facebook earlier this week that I had gotten interviewed about hot dogs randomly. And I posted the article, the interesting little article. And it was kind of a fun interview because I knew some of the history of hot dogs, but not a lot of the specifics. So I wanted to look some of it up. So obviously, sorry, Kenny's just commenting about how exhausting it was to shave that ice. And it was incredibly exhausting. I did read a couple things that you're supposed to like let it melt a little bit, which maybe you are. Maybe I'll try again later in the hour when it's slightly softer, and we'll see how well we do. But anyway, hot dogs. So hot dogs are really German, right? We think of them now as so American, but another term for them is Frankfurter. Why? Because they're from Frankfurt, Germany. At least that's what Frankfurt, Germany claims, although there are other regions in Germany that claim that they are the inventors of hot dogs. But it's basically a very finely ground sausage in a natural casing. Traditionally a mix of pork and pork fat and spices. Although in the United States, particularly in Jewish regions and Jewish delis, the kosher hot dog is made with just beef. And so they're introduced in the 1860s, and they're really not first sold with a bun until the late 1860s. Gosh, I'm forgetting the guy's name. So Kitty mentioned the Great Hot Dog War. Oh gosh, where is it? Hold on. Come on. I made a list of all my links here. Trying to get it to open. Oh my gosh, seriously. There we go. Oh no, where is it? This isn't the right link. Alright, I forget the guy's name. Anyway. So there's 2 main competitors in Coney Island, right? One of them, That's going to drive me so crazy that I cannot remember his name. Sorry, guys. Charles Feltman, thank you, takes credit as the inventor of the Coney Island hot dog, and one of his employees goes on to found Nathan's, which ends up having more longevity, obviously. But those are really the two men who kind of introduce hot dogs to the general non-German public. And it's because they're so incredibly easy to eat, right? When you're walking down the boardwalk or the beach at Coney Island, you want something to eat. You know, maybe a pretzel or popcorn or ice cream is not enough for a real meal, but a hot dog, a sausage on this very handy bun that you can carry around with you, right? That seems more like a sandwich. Meat and bread. That seems more like a real meal. They're also incredibly tasty. They're very easy to prepare and to prepare quickly. And that combined with their portability makes them kind of ideal summer food for that reason. So they become very popular on beaches like at Coney Island in the 1870s. Americans started to kind of build baseball stadiums. So American baseball has been around for a really long time as a popular sport, but it doesn't really start to get professionalized, and we don't get wooden stadiums until really the 1870s. And so pretty quickly, once you have a large crowd of people sitting around watching a game, what do you want? You want food. So it's an opportunity to capitalize on this kind of captive audience by selling hot dogs, right? Somebody did mention that I should talk about FDR and Eleanor Roosevelt and hot dogs. Which I totally will, because it's a fascinating story. So, on June 11th, 1939, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth of England go to Hyde Park in New York, which is like 45 minutes from where I live, to visit, I believe it's at Top Cottage, which was Eleanor Roosevelt's personal retreat on their Hyde Park estate. And they have a little picnic with the royals. Members of the press are not invited. It's very egalitarian, like the Roosevelts' servants and some of the estate workers and their families are there, which was sort of appalling to a lot of the upper crust of sort of the American aristocracy, right? Oh my gosh, we're having the King of England and the Queen of England come to the United States, and you're just gonna have a picnic with all these random poor people, right? But that was who Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt kind of were as people, especially Eleanor, very interested in, you know, showing the world democracy and the egalitarianism in the United States. So part of that is that they had a hot dog picnic. So this is where it gets kind of interesting, because obviously the King and Queen of England had never had hot dogs before. And supposedly the Queen, Elizabeth, asks how to eat it. And the apocryphal story is that FDR says, you put it in your mouth and keep pushing until it's gone. Which is apparently advice she did not take. She ate hers with a knife and fork. But the king enjoyed it so much that he had another, right? And I find it interesting that this story, they don't usually talk about the purpose of the trip. Like why the King of England came to America, because that's not usually a thing that happens, that foreign royalty comes to the United States. And so part of why they did that was obviously this is the eve of World War II. This is in June of 1939, and by September of 1939 Hitler invades Poland, right, and that kicks off World War II. So the British royalty, the monarchy, was trying to consolidate some allies. And the war was not really popular in the United States. There was a very strong, in fact, German Bund movement in the United States in favor of Hitler and Germany, which is why it's kind of ironic that Frankfurters from Frankfurt, Germany are, by this point, quintessentially American. But also, apparently, there was quite a bit of animosity toward the United Kingdom for you know, its perceived role in embroiling the United States in the First World War, which of course had devastating losses for American soldiers. So this is part of sort of like a publicity tour that FDR was very sympathetic to the British cause, and he kind of wanted to introduce the royals to the United States and show that they weren't, you know, these stuffy people looking down on America, and also show the world what American hospitality and American democracy was really all about. So they had actually planned to go to Canada, and they stopped in Washington, D.C. and did like the whole state dinner thing. They went to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. There was like a minstrel / cowboy song review. And then they went up to Hyde Park for a picnic on their way up to Canada. Because, of course, Hudson River, it's like a straight shot north from New York City, just about. So it was like on the way to Canada. And it becomes a sort of famous event that really, I think, kind of humanizes the British monarchy for ordinary Americans. Like, I think the New York Times, their headline is, "King loves hot dogs so much he has another," or he has two, or something like that. So, it's just this very interesting little aside in American history. And of course, hot dogs are involved because although they start out as German, by this point they're so quintessentially American. So another thing I found interesting that I found in my research is that hot dogs are apparently a tool of American diplomacy. So they were used by George H.W. Bush when entertaining foreign dignitaries, and then in 1999, when President Clinton went to Norway for the Middle East Peace Summit, apparently after the Peace Summit, he invited everybody back to the American Embassy in Oslo, and they had a little party reception, and they served hot dogs. Kosher hot dogs, but hot dogs nonetheless. So I just thought that was another little fascinating aside, that hot dogs have become sort of the symbol of the United States, both at home and abroad, which is interesting. It's too delicious. I have to drink it while it's cold. If you've ever had an Italian soda, the ice cream soda water is very similar. Although theoretically you would have a lot more shaved ice than I had the energy to put in there. So the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was hot dogs kind of like as fair food, and the invention of the corn dog. So I enjoy corn dogs. I haven't had one in a really long time because, of course, I only get them at fairs, right? And I haven't been to like a county fair or a state fair in a really long time. Hot dogs are easy enough to make at home. Corn dogs are a little bit more complicated and require deep fat frying, so I don't make anything deep fat fried at home, which is probably just as well, because if it got to be too easy, I would probably eat fried foods way too often for my own health. But I did find an interesting little article about the origin of the corn dog, which is of course disputed, right, as many things. So for those of you who don't know, corn dog is, you take a hot dog and you put it on a stick, and of course another great thing about hot dogs, especially commercially produced ones, is that they're pre-cooked, right? So you don't have to worry about them not being cooked through if you deep fat fry them in a batter. So you stick them on a stick, you dip them in a cornmeal based batter, and then you deep fry it. And often the cornmeal based batter is not like straight up cornmeal. Obviously it just has cornmeal in the mix, and it's often kind of sweet, and it's on a stick. I guess even more portable than a hot dog on a bun. But they're developed a little bit later. So the earliest potential reference to a corn dog is also in New York, in Buffalo, New York in 1927. There was a corn dog sandwich, right? So it was like cornbread, baked cornbread with hot dogs. And in 1927, in Buffalo, New York, a guy by the name of Stanley Jenkins filed for a patent for a machine, or an apparatus that's basically a corn dog, right? So it's impaling foods on a stick, coating them in batter, and deep fat frying them, including hot dogs, right? So he patented it, not clear how many he actually made or sold, but it's really not until the 1940s that they kind of get underway. Pronto Pup, if you've ever heard of Pronto Pup, in Portland, Oregon, in 1941, they started selling cornmeal battered, deep fat fried hot dogs on a stick, right? In 1942, at the Texas State Fair, a couple of vaudeville performers named Neil and Carl Fletcher started selling corny dogs, right? And then also in 1941, there's a place called the Cozy Dog Drive-In in Springfield, Illinois, who also said he had a role in Cozy Dogs in 1946. So lots of shrouded in mystery about the origins of who actually created corn dogs. But they're really delicious and really popular. And I think that's kind of has a lot to do with the kind of enduring quality of hot dogs. Like, why do they get to be so popular? Well, they're tasty, right? Especially my personal favorite is the natural casing or snappy hot dog. But there's also skinless hot dogs, which there are not. I don't know that there are any other cooked sausages that don't have a casing, really, other than hot dogs, which do technically have a casing, but it's not the same as like a natural casing. So they're very easy to eat. They're more juicy than greasy, I think is the perception, right? They're very tasty, right? They're very salty, but kind of mild. They're not hot or otherwise spicy. And because they're pre-cooked, they're really easy to serve and cook. They're also very inexpensive, and I think that's part of why I cannot for the life of me find out when hot dogs started being sold in grocery stores. I've tried to figure that out. I haven't really been able to. I'm guessing it's sometime like in the 30s or 40s, because that seems to be the very start of hot dog recipes showing up. Definitely by the time you get to the late 40s, early 50s, post-war, hot dogs are everywhere into the 1960s and 70s. A couple of months ago, I did an interview about hot dog, what do they call it? Crown roast of Frankfurters, right? I think it was 1971 Weight Watchers recipe, where you like stitch all these hot dogs together with skewers and you like stand them up. And then you fill the middle of the crown roast with like a cabbage slaw and bake it. So that was supposed to be like the cheap but impressive version of, you know, standing pork roast or rack of lamb crown roast, something like that. So hot dogs have kind of entered our national psyche. Oh, Sarah asked, when did hot dogs and baseball become associated with each other? So I did talk about that a little bit earlier, but baseball stadiums started to be built in the 1870s. And it's not clear who exactly, you know, is the first to sell hot dogs in baseball stadiums, but pretty much by the 1890s, 1880s, 1890s, they're very common. Oh, one thing I missed, speaking of 1890s, is hot dogs really enter the national psyche, you know, outside of New York City, at the 1893 World Columbia Exposition at Chicago, I believe. So this was like one of the huge world fairs. Tons of people went there, and hot dogs became crazy popular there. Hot dog on a bun. Yep. But yes, hot dogs and baseball. I mean, I think as soon as, like I said, I think as soon as people built stadiums and they had a captive audience, there were people there trying to sell them food. I mean, I don't think people fully realize often that in very urban areas, New York City in particular, push cart vendors were a huge thing in the latter half of the 19th and into the early 20th century. So it'd be individual proprietors with a little cart of all their stuff, pushing it on wheels, right? Usually hand operated by a human. You didn't have like a horse necessarily. And they sold everything like shoes, books, pickles, whatever you can think of. So in the wintertime there would be like hot chestnut vendors or popcorn, or it would be hot pretzels. In the summertime there would be pretzels and pickles and whatever else you could think of that you would sell from a cart, and hot dogs being one of them. So ironically, hot dog carts, I think, are one of the most persistent push cart, what's the word I'm looking for? Versions of push carts that still survive, because you do see, I mean, nowadays mostly they're like towed behind a vehicle and then parked, but it's a more human scale of food vending. It's not a big food truck. It's not some giant trailer that somebody is inside of. It's just a little cart, usually with an umbrella, and then all your fixings to make hot dogs. And that comes right out of the push cart tradition, or street selling tradition. So, yeah, interesting stuff. I'll share the video. I did see a modern video of people, speaking of corn dogs, hollowing out a giant dill pickle, putting a hot dog in the hole, putting that on a stick, dipping the whole thing in batter, and then deep frying it. So it's a deep fried hot dog in a pickle corn dog. Which, let's be honest, I would probably eat that. Anyway. Oh, Glenn. Okay, so Glenn is from Texas. And he says, I remember it being a big deal in Texas in the early 80s when the remaining Fletcher brother died. So the Fletcher brothers are the inventors of corny dogs, right? Isn't that what we said? Yes. Yep. Neil and Carl. Yeah, so I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything about hot dogs. I think that was pretty much all I wanted to talk about, you guys. What am I missing? Oh, so one thing we didn't talk about is all the variations on hot dog toppings, right? So I grew up very much like ketchup only, maybe some mustard. I'm now a ketchup, mustard, and relish kind of girl. But like every place has their own version. The most famous versions are, I think, the New York style and the Chicago style. So the New York style, I mean, it depends on where you go, but it's usually mustard and sauerkraut. And then there is also, popularized by Sabret, a version of sweet onions and like a thin tomato-based sauce, right? And they're usually cooked or stored in hot water, so they're kind of known as a dirty water dog, right? Because, of course, the fat from the hot dogs hanging out in the warm water kind of makes the water a little bit cloudy. So that's where they get that version. So that's New York City. And then, of course, Chicago style is kosher beef in a natural casing on a steamed poppy seed bun with yellow mustard, chopped white onions, a whole dill pickle spear, tomato slices, Chicago style relish, hot peppers, and then celery salt. So there's no ketchup on a Chicago style dog. I guess that's what the tomatoes are for. So anyway, those are the two most popular. But there's all different kinds. I mean, chili dogs, chili cheese dog is another really popular version. There are also red hots, which in North Dakota, when I was growing up, that was a very popular type of hot dog. and they were bright red. They weren't like spicy or anything, because hello, it's the Midwest. Of course they're not spicy, but they're just, the coloring was just red, bright red. So if you have a favorite hot dog topping, please feel free to drop it in the comments. I was talking with some friends about hot dogs not that long ago, and they mentioned that some people put mayonnaise on their hot dogs, which I'm kind of like, I tried it, and I mean, it's not bad, but it's not as good as mayonnaise on, say, a BLT. I don't know why. I think because the hot dogs are already pretty fatty. So anyway, that's my hot dog discussion. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments for tonight? Just trying to look through all of our other options of hot dogs. I think those are the most popular, the ones that have gone outside of the bounds of where they were created, right? Kitty says, I've been told numerous times that ketchup is a child's condiment. I am a child, I guess. So we could talk a little bit about condiments if you want. So ketchup, you know, anybody who maybe has any real interest in food history at all, maybe knows some of the story behind ketchup, or if you watched The Food That Built America and saw the story of Heinz, you might know a little bit about ketchup, that originally it was a brown sauce, like a walnut or mushroom based brown sauce that we got by way of Asia, probably China, you know, probably inspired by a fermented fish sauce, right? And it's not until the 19th century really that it becomes a tomato-based sauce. Heinz is not the first person to make tomato-based ketchup, because you do see published cookbook recipes for it earlier than that, but he's one of the first people to make it commercially and to really popularize it. So I think ketchup is probably considered a child's condiment because it's very mild and sweet, right? It's not spicy. It's not super vinegary. It's got sugar in it. I love ketchup. I don't eat ketchup on everything like some people. I'm not like a ketchup on mac and cheese or scrambled eggs kind of a person. But definitely burgers and hot dogs and french fries. I enjoy ketchup. Yes. Ooh, Elizabeth says, hot dogs versus brats. Are they different? Which came first? You're going to make me look up the history of bratwurst, because I'm assuming brats came first. Because they are, the thing about hot dogs is you have to have a very, very fine grind on the meat, which is difficult to do unless you have like a mechanical grinder. So you can make any kind of sausage. I mean, sausage and force meat, which is like chopped up meat that you put in make into a ball, or you know, like an oblong, whatever, and you fry it, also known as meatballs. Those are very old, ancient world, dating back to the ancient world recipes. But you have to use knives to do it, right? So you're going to get, it's very difficult to get that kind of smooth paste of meat and fat that you need to make a hot dog. So bratwurst, we were cut into one. It's a much coarser, still fairly fine, but much coarser grind on the meat. So, I mean, like I said, sausage is like crazy old. So who knows which is the first one, right? But I think because of the way the interior of the bratwurst is coarser than a hot dog, my guess is that bratwursts are older. That's just my guess. My educated guess. As to which one became popular in the United States first, I think definitely hot dogs, frankfurters, become popular much sooner. I'm sure there were bratwurst consumed in the United States probably around the same time as Frankfurters brought by German immigrants to the U.S., but I don't think bratwursts really get popular among the general American population until probably the latter half of the 20th century, to be honest with you. Unless you count ring bologna as bratwurst, which I don't really, but they're very similar. Yeah, this is pretty tasty, you guys, but the shaved ice, I don't know if the shaved ice was worth the effort. It just kind of melted. I could try it again now that the ice is more melty. Should I make another one? Now that the ice has been sitting here. See if I can get it out without getting water all over everything. Maybe. Maybe. I think I'm just gonna have to get water all over everything. Oh, not too bad, actually. We'll see if this shaves a little better now that it's warmer. Nope. That made like no difference, you guys. Nope, alright. I give up. The ice is going back in. I'm not gonna have another one, which is sad because it's really delicious. And I don't have any regular ice. So, anyway. I did say I would, last week that I would talk about savory versus sweet cocktails. Sadly, I was not able to do that much research. Prior to today, I wasted it all on hot dogs. Oh, Kitty says, I can imagine something that looks like a horse brush doing well to shave that thing. So the thing about shaved ice is you want it to really be like, almost like fine snow texture. But you could probably just make, you know, ice in your blender if you have a strong enough blender. But I thought I would try doing it the real old-fashioned way, doing it by hand. And it's pretty labor-intensive. So, our theory from last week was that 19th century cocktails were largely sweet cocktails, and it really wasn't until the 20th century that we started to get savory cocktails. So I think that's probably borne out. I didn't get a chance to go through a lot of the 19th century cookbooks, but definitely all of the research that I've done for Food History Happy Hour, I've noticed most of the cocktails tend to have some kind of sweet component. There are some exceptions to that rule. There are a number of cocktails that just don't call for any syrup or anything. It's just the alcohol and maybe lemon or soda or a combination of alcohols. But most of them are pretty sweet and include either a sweetened alcohol, like a fruit brandy or something like that, or some kind of syrup, or sugar and fruit. But I thought I would pull out, I have this little Calvert's, the Calvert Party Encyclopedia, which is of course from the Calvert blended whiskey people. And it dates to 1963. So I thought we could just take a little perusal here and see if there are any savory cocktails from the 1960s. I'm presuming that there are, but I have to tell you that so far it looks like there's a lot of sweet things, you guys. Maybe not necessarily super sweet, but there's a lot of powdered sugar, orange, sugar syrup, grenadine, right? Oh, that one looks fun. Honey, sweet vermouth. I don't know how sweet vermouth is. I haven't actually had sweet vermouth before. Stuff like anisette, right? Sweet things. Man, you guys. I I think Americans and people in general just like their alcohol sweet, I guess. Alright, well, we do have gin and tonic, right? That's not sweet. A dry martini. Anything that's dry is usually not that sweet. But those seem to be the exception rather than the rule, which is very interesting. I would have thought, being the 1960s, it would have been a lot more like, you know, green olives and stuff. Yeah, interesting. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick perusal. I see people are commenting. I'm just going to take a quick perusal and see if we have any other. Oh, haha, Florida special. Not the same. This one I think is called the Florida special because it has grapefruit juice in it. All right, so here we have a Bloody Mary. Right, that is obviously savory. We do have a couple of recipes that are just combinations of alcohol without any other ingredients. But the prevailing cocktail is sweet, even in the 1960s, which surprises me. So there's a section called Around the World in 31 Drinks. And there's a drink from Nicaragua called Rum Pope. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. That's how it looks. And it calls for rum or brandy, egg yolks, sugar, milk, cornmeal, cinnamon, lemon rind, and vanilla. Interesting. I don't think I would like cornmeal in a cocktail. Seems like it would be kind of gritty. All right. Weird. I would have thought there would have been way more savory beverages in here, you guys. So that was an interesting little perusal. Okay, Sarah says, do preferred hot dog buns vary by geographic region? Potato, pretzel, etc. Well, obviously Chicago dogs has to be on a poppy seed bun to be a true Chicago dog. I personally like Martin's potato rolls. But I just think they're tasty. Yes, Sarah also says she never had hot dog buns unless there was an actual cookout. Any other day we just had hot dogs. We just used a piece of toast folded in half. Definitely in my family growing up, there was like the cut the hot dog in half lengthwise and then cut it crosswise and make like a little square on a regular bun or on a piece of bread. We definitely did that. Yep, because for whatever reason, sometimes you have hot dogs more often than you have hot dog buns. I try to buy them both at the same time and then keep extras in the freezer. But it is an added expense, I guess, to get special buns. And then, of course, if you have the awful thing where it's only like 6 hot dogs in a pack and 8 hot dog buns. Like, I refuse to buy packs of hot dogs that only have 6 hot dogs. That drives me crazy. And if it's like, you know, the more artisan hot dogs that are like all kind of in a pack, not in a row, I count them to make sure there are 8 before I buy them. Because I cannot stand having leftover hot dog buns. What do? I guess then you pretend you're in elementary school and you make what we called Italian dunkers. So Midwestern. It was basically a hot dog bun with mozzarella cheese toasted and then served with a tomato-based meat sauce that you would dip the hot dog bun in. I'm sure some lunch lady was like, well, we have all these extra hot dog buns, what are we gonna do? And that's what happened. So I'm just gonna peruse the list of all the specialty hot dogs and see if there's any other bun requirements. Oh, interesting. Okay. The Okie Dog in West Hollywood is 2 hot dogs and a flour tortilla covered with chili and pastrami and wrapped up like a burrito. Apparently that's how they serve them, or similar to how they serve them in Okinawa. Interesting. Just checking. No, not a lot of other bun references besides Chicago. Apparently in Kansas City and Missouri, a Kansas City style dog is a pork sausage and a sesame seed bun topped with brown mustard, sauerkraut, and melted Swiss. So that's a sesame seed bun. Interesting. I'm surprised, like, so pretzel dogs are totally a thing. I don't know where they started. Maybe Pennsylvania. I don't know. But I've definitely had a pretzel dog, you know, like where you wrap pretzel dough around a hot dog and bake it. I've had that. That's delicious. Yeah, it's funny. I think the variations on the theme specialty dogs have a lot more to do with the toppings than they do with the bun. I suppose because it's just the typical, whoever decided that that was going to be a hot dog bun, that's what it is. It's very difficult to find hot dogs on homemade buns these days, although apparently the original Coney Island dog was served on a milk bun. Which I haven't actually found any recipes for milk buns, so I don't know what that really means. But presumably it's a soft and tender roll, unlike, you know, like a hard roll or something like that. But anyway, good question, Sarah. Ashley, peanut butter hot dog buns was a thing in your house? Like you put peanut butter on the hot dog bun and then put hot dog on it? I mean, I guess I can't say anything because that is a very, like, turn of the 20th century thing to do. If you are interested in cookbooks like I am, in particular in from like the 1920s to the 1940s, there's this whole genre of like sandwich filling recipes, some of which we would never eat today. Like, nowadays a sandwich tends to be like sliced meat and cheese and like some condiments and maybe some vegetables. Historically, sandwiches were much more like everything is chopped up in kind of like a paste. But they did some really interesting things with peanut butter, like peanut butter and like ground up green bell peppers and onion. I don't know that I would eat that. Oh, Ashley is clarifying. Sorry, I misread you. Peanut butter hot dog buns means you take a hot dog bun and you put peanut butter on it, right? You didn't actually put the hot dog in there too? Yes, leftover buns became peanut butter and butter sandwiches. Okay. That makes so much more sense. So much more sense. Although, to be honest, I would probably try a hot dog with peanut butter on it just to say that I tried it. I like peanut butter and savory things, but that's so funny. That makes a lot more sense. Thank you for clarifying. All right. I'm going to cheat and just make one without the ice this time, you guys. Because shaved ice is just way too much work. I'm glad I did it for the show. But shaving ice by hand, I see now why the machines are so popular. Oh, this brings me back to my pastry shop days when we would make Italian sodas, or sorry, French sodas we called them because they had cream. Italian sodas were just syrup and soda water, and French sodas had the heavy cream in them. Yeah, still good. Still good, even without the shaved ice. So for those of you who are joining us late, I did originally make the 1869 ice cream soda water, which was shaved ice, cream, syrup, and soda water. The shaved ice just made it cold. I didn't make enough of it. I wasn't able to shave enough ice quickly enough to make it slushy, I guess, which I assume is the original intent, although the recipe gives no measurements. But soda water with cream and syrup is just as good without the shaved ice. Should you care to make it at home. I guess it's just a cream soda water then, instead of an ice cream soda water. All right. Any other questions for me? About 5 minutes left. Just gonna double check my list. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Sorry. That was my alarm. Okay, well, if you think of any questions that you want to ask for next week, you can certainly drop them in the comments. I have no idea what we're going to talk about next week, so ask away. Otherwise, I'm sure I will get inspired by something over the weekend. I am traveling next week, so I'm going to try and make it home Friday by 8 o'clock. But if we have to push it back later, I will let everybody know in advance. Going to visit my mother-in-law and hopefully work on the book. There's also some blog posts that are not Food History Happy Hour related that will be posted in the next couple of weeks. So if you haven't signed up for the email list and you want to, you can go to thefoodhistorian.com. If you wait like 5 seconds, a little pop-up will come up, or there is also a sign-up in the footer of any page, and you'll get the blog post automatically delivered to your inbox, usually at noon, I think. And then, of course, if anyone wants to support the Food History Happy Hour or my blog or any of the other work that I do on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/thefoodhistorian. We do some pretty cool members-only stuff, including some members-only recipes and blog posts. And as I announced last month, I have a new book scanner, so I'm hoping to be scanning some more of my book collection. You can't see it, but all my oldest books are over there in the corner. The public domain ones, right? So I should be scanning some of those in the next couple of weeks and posting them up online. So those are some of the perks of becoming a member. All right, last call for questions, and I'm going to drink some more of my non-ice cream soda water. Because I'm quite thirsty from all the talking. I'll give it a minute because there's usually a delay with comments on Facebook for whatever reason. If you're also new to the Food History Happy Hour, there is a whole back catalog of previous episodes on the website at foodhistorian.com. Sorry, thefoodhistorian.com. You go up to projects, there's a little drop-down menu, and Food History Happy Hour is on there, or they're also all on YouTube except for last week, because I haven't gotten that one up yet because my new computer, I haven't downloaded my video editing software yet. So that's a project for next week. All right, it looks like there are no more questions or comments. So thank you everybody so much for watching tonight. I hope you enjoyed our discussion of hot dogs, and I hope you enjoyed watching me exert myself to hand shave some ice. And hopefully we will see you here next week on Friday, right here on Facebook at 8 o'clock for Food History Happy Hour. My name is Sarah Wasper Johnson, also known as the Food Historian, and have a good night, and we'll hopefully see you next week. All right? Bye, everybody!